Welcome to another episode of The Money Honey, the show that brings you women in property, finance, and construction. And today I have a very special guest who is actually in finance and in property. So she's rocking it from all angles. And I can't wait to bring her on because she's got a very, very, very important message. This concept of women in this industry is very close to her heart for different reasons. And I'm going to let her share the story and make the points. So I am going to be bringing her on the show very soon. Her name is Dina Bhudia. She is the owner and founder of P2M Group, and she's an independent financial advisor. So I cannot wait for her to share her story. Let's kick it off. Hi there, Dina. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, Rosalia.
Hi. So nice to meet you because you reached out to me on LinkedIn and you did something very brave. And I know this was massively stretching yourself out of your comfort zone, but I know you did it because you felt like you had to. And you actually approached me and said, I've seen your show, I've seen, what you're doing. Can I come on? And
Yes,
normally people don't ask to come on. They are asked to come on because they don't want to be exposed. So actually you put yourself here. What made you want to do that?
I think great question, but I think I've over the years being a woman, as all the other great women on your show, we don't tend to be approached very often, and being an ethnic minority woman. I'm surrounded by, my own community from an ethnic minority, and you know the environment that I've been brought up in is women don't really have a voice. We're second generation into this country. We just accept. You just do what your husbands say. You do what the males say around you, and it's always known that you are homemakers. You are housewives. You look after the children. So it's been hard. So everything's been pushing myself to put myself at the forefront and actually say, well, you know what, I've got something to say, and let me speak. So here I am.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I absolutely love it because, cultures do play a part in, the making of a person and the what do you call it, like the pre-programming that is required for success or for anything. You need to be wired in that way. So I totally relate. I mean, do you mind me asking, what is your
Not at
ethnic?
all. I'm from I'm a Hindu faith, from
Right.
yeah.
And what's your country of origin?
Country of origin is India. I
India.
was actually born here, so it's East meets West, and then there's those
Yes.
cultural, like, where do I fit in? Do I follow the Eastern ways of living, or am I, the Western child and actually going and surrounding myself with British people and the Western culture? So actually, already in your mind, you're like, hold on a minute, I'm not allowed to do that. I'm not allowed to ask why in my culture to my parents. This is obviously, we're talking when I was younger, but the why question wasn't there. And now we are encouraging our children and actually saying, no, you must ask, you should be curious, it's a good thing. Whereas,
Mm.
if you looked at your parents, you only got the eyes that sort of spoke a lot of words, rather than the mouth. So when you've been, I suppose, culturally brought up that way, you bring that into your working environment, which actually, I think, holds you back to a degree.
It does. I do relate, because I think Italian cultures, which is mine, I think that's very similar to Indian cultures. I've got a lot of Indian friends, and they
Yeah.
have flagged up the similarities, and we can see it, when we're growing up at school, or now that in our adult life, we can see the similarities. And there are so many good qualities that Indian and Italian cultures have that we don't get as much in the Western world here, like in the UK, for example.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. From a woman in a industry like financial services. So tell us a little bit about what you actually do. Actually, give yourself an intro. What would you say You do, yeah, because I gave you an intro, but I'd love for you to share who you are and what you do.
So what I do in my working world is I own actually two companies. One is P2M Properties, which is the estate agency part of the business, and then the financial services, which is P2M Asset Management. So I left the banking industry actually because I didn't feel I had an identity. I felt that I was a salary number, and I wanted to be known as Dina. Because I always wanted to find the I in my name, actually, funny enough.
Yes.
So I got headhunted. I got headhunted by a network at the time, and I was scared going into the self-employed world. I'd only just given birth to my son, and I was like, oh my God, I'm breastfeeding on the left-hand side. I've got a laptop on my right. How am I going to make this work? And someone believed in me and took me into the self-employed world. And within 6 weeks, I got told I needed to hire somebody because I couldn't cope with all the work that was coming in, which was an amazing place to be. And the story went on. I hired somebody, I took the risks, and it was actually the fire of my child, or the wants and the hunger that sort of allowed me to prosper. And then 7-8 years into building my mortgage business, my community, who I was in those days, it was sort of I would say that the average age for my clients were about late 50s. Their mother tongue was Gujarati or Hindi. They didn't speak English. A lot of them came from the construction trade background, so working with their hands rather than the academic knowledge that many of us have today. So giving mortgage advice in a second language was challenging in itself. Making them understand cash is not king, in terms of, in those days, bank that money, you need to pay payroll, all these different things. Understanding the mortgage system was challenging. So I was actually educating and evolving them as a community in order for them to get mortgages and move on. And in Asian blood, property is part of the bloodline.
Oh, in Italian as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
So if you don't hold property, it's like, oh God, there's something missing of your part of your body part, right?
Yes. Or you're not passing down to your children, right? Because
Intergenerational,
yes. You have to pass down property, because the biggest thing for Indian and Italian families is that you live to give your children a better life, and so that when you're gone, they've got a roof over their head, which is just so, like, come on, that you can't argue with that. That is absolutely amazing.
It's simple, isn't it? Food and shelter.
That's it. Are
It
you
really
fed?
is.
Are you warm? Have you got a home? That's it. That's what these families want to provide. And actually, that can sometimes be missing. I'm going to say something quite controversial, but I feel like it does. That's growing up Italian with that culture. And sorry, we will go back onto what you were saying, but I really just wanted to make a side note that I relate to you so much, because I was born in Sicily and was growing up there, then came over here. But here I had to mix the English and then go to school and be surrounded by English people, and then go home and be surrounded by my Sicilian grandparents. And something I have struggled with growing up is the English versus Italian way of parenting and, way of thinking. And like, the English parents, the good thing is they're like, you're a big boy now, you're independent, go off and do your own thing. But then as an Italian, I'm like, doesn't your mum love you? Like, doesn't she want to do this for you? Like,
Yeah,
the way we show love is
yeah,
very different, isn't it?
yeah, so true. It's like, as you said, it's not fitting in, because you've got these battles of, you're not fitting in your culture because you want to adopt some of these Western things that you're surrounded by, and you want to voice them within your home family life, and you want to bring some of your home family life into your school and education,
Yes.
or so there's all of that. And as I was growing up, that was the conflict that I was up against. And not only, in those days, your social circle was really who you played with on the local block, coming from a social working class background, and funny enough, surrounded by a lot of boys and bikes. I was one of the only girl actually to go out on the bike and go around the block. What then became a bit of a problem, because my parents wouldn't allow me to be seen, to be surrounded by boys, because the community would then talk about me.
Oh
Right?
my God, I've been there. I had the bike too, Dina. Where were you? We could have been on the bike together. Oh
So,
my God, I know what you're talking about.
so it's only now I look back and subconsciously sort of think, well, this is why I most probably get on with men, and I can have a conversation far better with men than I can have with women, because actually my upbringing has been surrounded by boys,
Mm.
which, I suppose it is a good thing in terms of confidence. But actually, when your grandparents, your parents are actually saying, oh no, you can't walk to the high street with the boy, you can't go to school with these guys, you can't do, and it's, you've got no friend circle, you're actually becoming more and more lonely. So going back to my working world, where I'm sort of bringing this community into this world of mortgage and finance, has been tough, because there's strong Asian heads that you're, actually saying, why don't you introduce me to somebody? Oh, yes, 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 of course I can do, Dina. But actually, they want you to be that girl sitting at home making, in my case, the chapatis and the curry.
Mm.
And for my parents, it was hard. For my mum more so, because of the aftermath she was getting from the community. Like, why is Dina going out to work? Why is she? Did she have to create a business? Why is she making life so difficult for her? She had a great job in the bank, secure. But Rosalie, for me in the bank, in those times, there was no flexibility. There wasn't really a space for a mum. That it didn't meet the requirements that I felt. I wanted to be my mum. I wanted to be a mum. I didn't want to sacrifice, that. I wanted to create those magic moments for my children. And you can only do that if you're there. So that then made me realize that actually time out, I've got to move on. 7 years in building my business, I then defaulted into estate agency, because all these clients who've now bought loads of buy-to-let properties and all, where can I go to rent my property, Dina? And I'm like, I don't actually know. I can't equate myself to an estate agent in those days that I would like to be affiliated with me. So they all started saying, well, why don't you set one up? We trust you, just do it. And that's how I ended up, because I thought, added value service, it's pretty much on a plate, because I've already done their mortgages, and there I was setting up an estate agency, which I don't think any of my careers was an intention. Actually, it's all happened by default, to be honest.
That's amazing. I just love how you are breaking barriers and you're breaking through misconceptions or preconceived ideas about who you should be and how you should be. And what you're showing me is actually you can have it all. You can be the mum, you can be the businesswoman, you can, if you wanted to, I bet you make really good chapatis.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
made 50
yeah,
yesterday.
exactly. Yes. So I bet you could do it all and still be winning. But you need to do it your way. You need to do it what's right for you. Of course, our cultures are very food orientated. They're very family orientated. And actually, I love that. I don't want anyone to ever think like, oh, she's Italian and all she does is, be in the kitchen, or the opposite. Oh, she's Italian and she's not in the kitchen at all. I actually want to maintain that really
Agreed.
strong, because I do want to feed my children in the future. I do want to be that nonna, that grandmother who's
Yeah,
constantly overfeeding her,
yeah.
her grandkids. Like, I do like that. And as long as you like it, I don't think it's a stereotype, and I don't think it's insulting. If you enjoy it, then embrace
Absolutely.
it. You've got to embrace your culture.
Absolutely. And I think you made a valid point there, actually, because some of those, presumptions or assumptions is the fact that I am a businesswoman or built my own business over the years. Many of Asian businessmen in particular think that I can't cook, that I actually don't go home and do the Italian, Indian sort of grand things that we do. So they actually assume that, oh, I'm sure you actually go and take a takeaway every night. Hello, what makes you think that?
Oh
We
my
really
God.
are. We are multi-skilled, and it's not you. I mean, yes, we all have balance. We all have balance,
Mm.
and we have cheat days. But that doesn't mean, like you said, you know, you can't have the grand Italian food or the Asian food on the table. But this is what I'm battling with. You know, people throwing this at you. It's like darts have just been thrown at you, and it's like, why can't you just see it the way it is and accept that if I'm telling you that, yeah, I do it, I do. And you know, something recently, you know, Rosalia, only early on this week, I was at a diversity and inclusivity as very passionate to me, and something I've always known because I've always felt it and lived it. But actually, when you see figures and statistics in front of you, that's when it really hurts. It actually brings it home. So there was a statistic that came out, or I was shown it only a few days ago, that statistic was women from leadership executive boards from ethnic minority backgrounds. I was going to be optimistic and say circa 3%, Rosalia. And I thought I was being fair to the industry, but actually the answer is 1%.
So the answer, so let's just get that again. So 1% of the leadership committee or boards or people in senior positions, less than 1% are from an ethnic minority.
No, women.
Women from an ethnic minority background. Right. So it gets even more. So we talk about, I've had many guests on the show where we talk about inequality between men and women in financial services. And I have to say, they've all been English. Yeah. Think so. Yeah, everyone's been English. So no one's brought to the table yet, like you're doing, from an ethnic point of view, from an ethnic minority point of view, how much smaller that number gets. Because actually you're probably seeing, and if, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're probably seeing women on the board, but they don't look like you.
Absolutely. And when you are a part of intersectionality, so for example, you're a woman, you're not a uni graduate, and then you're from an ethnic minority background, and then if you're LGBTQ, so you're sort of ticking all these boxes, that 1% surely is just going far less and less and less. So how tough would it be for someone who actually falls in all those sections?
But surely, right, so let's, right, a little debate here. Surely if I'm like, let's say I'm going to try and cover off as much as I can. So let's say I'm Indian, let's say I am bisexual. I'm also a woman, obviously, right? But bisexual woman, and I'm disabled. Let's say I've got a disability and I've got all these things. Surely it's not because we don't want that type of person on the panel, but there's got to be these can. How do I want to say it? It's about the opportunities that you've had and the exposure, because let's face it, if you have a disability, and there is a case about, you know, increasing that equality as well and bridging that gap. But with some disabilities, you physically sometimes don't have the same access or availability to you to be in certain rooms or in certain discussions. And I think we just need to find a way to, like, I just, like, really silly example, right? A client of mine was doing some videos on social media, because that's what I do. And all his videos are of him just talking to the camera. And I said, right, you need some subtitles on your camera, on your video, because actually 85% of people listen to your videos without the sound.
Right.
And that's not even to mention people that are deaf. What if I'm deaf? I actually can't hear you. So, you know, and then he looked at it differently and was like, oh my goodness, I am ignoring a whole population of people that could still need a mortgage, obviously, but they are not able to listen to me on social media. So it's just making conscious, I think, you know, we need to make conscious choices of how we are accepting or becoming accessible to our audience. And Do you see what I mean?
Absolutely. It's interesting you say this actually, because I was just recently talking to some sort of bankers as well as insurance companies about how, technology is at the forefront. Why is it that on, lender provider website, just like you have that drop down that has English, French, Italian, Urdu, Hindi, how simple is that, Rosalia? I mean,
Yes.
we're talking about disability here, but even those with ability who English may not be their first language,
Mm.
if technology is allowing you to do this, surely are the lenders or the insurers saying we don't get any business from different
Yes.
language people? Because that's what you're
Yes.
saying to me.
Yeah. Yeah. The way you're set up to not embrace these other the ethnic minority. Now, I used to see actually contrary to that, the lender
Yeah,
I used to work at, I did
yeah,
actually used to see a lot of like English wasn't the first language, and so we did have a service of translation service and things like that. But that's because we saw, and I actually, what's really ironic is that we used to call those cases, what do they call them? Specialist
sure.
or quirky,
Yeah.
right? And it's
Why?
not like, do you know, it's just not quirky. It's not weird. It's just this applicant is from, we had many from Sri Lanka, and obviously their names, the way you have
Yeah.
to spell their name. So we have to, I think, like you say, such a great point. We keep talking about robo advice and robots are taking on AI. We can't even translate something on our website, let alone take over the world and have a robot acting human all of a sudden.
This is it.
So we're very behind.
We talk about inclusivity, but there's some real small fixes. We've come a long way, Rosalie. I don't want to. This industry is
Yeah.
actually at the forefront in my eyes. They're absolutely brilliant. There's some amazing forums out there. And the mortgage industry is open for all. But there's some simple fixes that really can be done. We are talking about it, but let's take the actions. Let's not just talk about
Yes.
it. Because I think there's a big audience that we're missing, and we miss them, and it's only people like myself, and I'm sure there's many other brokers out there from different backgrounds who have bridged that gap, but we are still the minority. But yet
Do you
the
think it's
community
because
in England,
but is it because, sorry to interrupt you, is it because we're in this country though? So like this country, I don't know, what is the popular, are I feel like I don't see, I don't know, it's a really hard one. I don't know how to talk about it because I see myself as Italian. I definitely do. But when I'm here in England, I don't walk around like, oh, look at this coffee. This is bloody rubbish. I'm not walking, I'm integrated. I
yes.
think this is the word. Like, do you feel integrated in your community and society? I do.
Okay. My answer to that would be, it depends what we were talking about, because again, I've adapted to fit in to what society is expecting from me. Okay. However, society is not necessarily embracing who I really am. I'll give
Which
you an
society? Because if I went
example.
to, for
Yeah.
example, I've traveled all over the world, right?
Mm.
If I went to, like, I've been to Dubai. Now,
Yeah.
that is a society
Yeah.
that I cannot be like, you must embrace me and you must embrace everything. I'd have to go in and adapt, wouldn't I? Or
Yes.
are you saying you'd want to see a world where Dubai and Abu Dhabi and Syria and Morocco and USA all come and see each other as one?
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, there's the beauty of culture that we are different. Okay.
Mm.
But it's about having those conversations about being different. And in the working environment, it's understanding that. It's understanding that, those of us from different faiths celebrate different festivals. And how do we celebrate those festivals? Because our teams are from different backgrounds. So let's not just assume that on a Monday they've watched the Man United or the Liverpool football on a Saturday, and that's the only conversation that should be happening on a Monday. If somebody actually did go to the temple and did go and do whatever, or we need to be open to that dialogue.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
and there is imposter syndrome. There's people like myself or people from different backgrounds who don't feel that they can put this out there, and they should. So we have a responsibility to put it out there and be heard.
I was going to say, you need to talk.
100%.
No one else can talk about it because they're not doing it. So I've recently, if we're on this subject, and I know this will definitely strike a chord with you, but I've recently re-engaged with my faith, and something I'd lost for a really long time, not on purpose, not because something catastrophic happened and I was like, screw you, God. It wasn't like that. It was because society, I fell into going to uni, and I fell out of the pattern of going to church on a Sunday. And with my Catholic background, there's a lot of guilt that comes with that. We have to say, obviously there's the Catholic guilt, but it just became like something that was so far buried I didn't even think about. It just became as like, if you tick a questionnaire and they're like, do you speak English? Yeah. Religion, Catholic. It wasn't even like a thing anymore. It was almost something that was just on my birth certificate. So anyway, long story short, I reconnected with my faith, and I reconnected with, finding my own like prayer or own voice, call it meditation or call it a prayer or whatever you want to call it. But I started then sharing that, and I started to speak up about it. And of course, that brings a lot of controversy. There's a lot of people that react to that. And I know that there's a mind game that you have to play. So whether you want to speak about disability or ethnicity or religion, I just bring it down to this. If you're coming from a good place, then you can do no wrong, and you cannot control other people's reactions or feelings towards what you're saying. I do not share for propaganda. I do not share for, I just share, oh yeah, I went to church. Like if someone says, oh, what did you do at the weekend? I'd be like, yeah, I went to B&M. I'm always buying stuff in B&M. Then I went to church, and then I went for coffee, and they're like, oh, you go to church? And you're like, I love how that is bothering you. I love how that, do you see what I mean? It's like me saying, what, you watched the Man United game? How rubbish. Like, I love how that hurts you. What I do with my life, how does that hurt you exactly?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And it is about, and part of sort of recently coming, speaking on different things and writing different blogs, and there's also that assumption that people don't want to know, and actually people do want to know. And also those people who are asking, they're hesitant because they don't know how to ask, because they think, oh, this is controversial. How do I ask, Dina? Which background are you from? Or are you a Hindu? Or are you Muslim? Or are you, do you mind me asking? Listen, if you're asking me with good intentions,
exactly,
it's exactly what you said. And that allows me to then share. And I think that is happening so well now. People really are becoming far more, well, to be honest, I am. And that allows people to understand each other.
Yeah. I think I've grown up with, maybe I've got the best of both worlds, where I've been raised by traditional parents. And so asking the question, for example, where are you from? That was like the most popular question. Ever since I was 8 years old, it was, where are you from? Where are you from? Where are you from? Yeah. Today, if you ask someone, where are you from? They're like, do you mean my origin? Or do you mean my town? Or do you mean, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm just like panicking about offending someone, when actually what I've now said to myself, if someone gets offended, I'm just, what I say is, I'm really sorry you took it that way. I was actually coming from a really good place. I'm really sorry that that's how how you received it. I just literally, wanted to know, like, why do you speak what languages are you speaking? Like, what is that language that you just spoke on the phone? Like, I'm interested, not because I'm judging. I think that's, we are a bit sensitive sometimes, that we might feel like we're being attacked, when actually, like you've just said, people might just be interested. They just don't know how to get into your world. So absolutely. More sharing is what you're saying, being open and just sharing more about that.
Absolutely.
Well, that has been very interesting. I've not had this angle on the show before, and I'm so glad you reached out to me, Dina, because I really am so grateful that you've brought this to my attention, that you've brought it to the viewers' attention, because there'll be brokerages out there. I know who they are. I know who's listening. That they've said that they've taken a good look at their team and they've realized that there's not enough diversity, and they don't want to just hire for the sake of diversity, but they want to feel like they are being surrounded by, you can learn from different people. You know, someone who has a disability can teach you something that you don't know how to do because they've had to learn how to do it differently. Now that's
Absolutely.
exciting for me, like giving someone an opportunity to really excel in their skill. I have to say this out loud. I do want to say this because I'm sure you'll appreciate it. My virtual assistant, right? My PA, he has Tourette's, and he is absolutely gorgeous. He's absolutely amazing. He's and him and his partner, so he's gay and has Tourette's and is running a business. So we're talking about women and ethnic minorities. He's got a few boxes himself that he has to battle against.
Mm.
But with the Tourette's, with the with the boyfriend, with the business, they're now adopting a baby.
Oh,
And
fantastic.
it's just like I hired him, and I know this sounds really like I could tell his skills where I just couldn't see the Tourette's. Like people have asked, like, oh, when you're on a meeting, does it put you off? I'm like, no, like literally he talks, and obviously, yeah, he has like a word that comes out or
Sure.
something. I'm just
Yes.
there, like I'm so mesmerized by his talent that I'm just like, yeah, just amazing.
I think Rosalind, acceptance of real human beings, possibly, I don't know for yourself, but those who come from some form of faith or come from charitable giving and who are grounded, somehow find a way to be very grounded, they can relate. So I come from a faith. I actually run a Hindu faith school on a Saturday. I do a lot of charity work for the local community from food banks. I'm actually doing a rickshaw run in
Oh,
December, driving a rickshaw,
wow.
tuk-tuk, to raise funds in India. And these are things that keep me connected to people who really come from difficult backgrounds or
Yeah.
cultures.
Yeah, I
And
feel you.
that makes us realize that, we all come from an industry, we all have roles, we all have money, we have, but let's create a purpose. What is our real purpose? And
Yeah.
my purpose is to make a difference to
Yes.
whoever we're connected with. So,
Speaking of making a difference, this episode or this show is all about positive pollination, right? So, I don't know if you saw in my bio, but positive pollination is all about giving to the next person. So you've just been given the opportunity to share your story. Who would you share? Who would you like to see share their story? Who would you love to see on this show?
you've had a few people on here already, actually.
Well, you can mention anyone. Someone today mentioned Linda, the latest prime minister from president from New Zealand. And they're like, we'd love to see Linda on the show. I was like, I'm not sure I have her contact details, but I will
Oh God,
do my best.
you've I don't really know. Actually, there's someone from Barclays, very, very high up
Okay.
and her name is Hiral Shah, and I would love to see or hear about her journey. And I will connect you with her, and she's an Asian woman.
I don't
Um,
know her. This is amazing. I don't know who she is.
yeah, I will
Wow.
connect you with her because it would be great to hear her story.
Oh my
Oh, and
gosh.
I've got somebody else. Got somebody else. Chandani Vora from construction. She's one of the few women from a huge construction company, and I know you're talking about women in construction as well. So there you go.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Imagine, because of you, these women are going to, firstly, as soon as they hear that they've been nominated, they are going to, like, you've given them that gift already. Even if they don't come on the show, the fact that you've nominated them, I know is going to put a big smile on their face. So when this episode comes out, I'll leave it to you to tag them or to intro us via email. But I know that that nomination, that's why I call it positive pollination. It's you're a little bee and you've just passed that pollen and you've just helped someone else flourish. And that is what we're about. This is what this community is about. Not tearing each other down, but just empowering one another. So thank you for giving me half an hour of your wisdom, and I've genuinely felt like a friendship. Like I know it sounds really cheesy, but I felt like you've treated me like a friend, and you're just talking to me as honest as possible rather than trying to be something. Like, you haven't pretended on this show. You haven't said, oh, Rosalia's interview. You really let me in. So thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosalia. Thank you. Thank you.
Right. Well, have an amazing day. I'll speak to you offline. And for anyone listening, please don't forget to obviously subscribe and like the channel if you want to hear more, but do not feel afraid to reach out. It's a casual, I'm sure Dina can vouch for this, it's a nice, chatty, a relaxed conversation. But if I'm not reaching out to you, please do not feel like I don't want you on the show, or that I'm not reaching out to you for any particular reason. Just make yourself known, just a little hands up if you want to be on, and I'd be happy to share your story. Thanks again for listening.